Howdy, Immortalium here, and today I'm going to be doing a haul video, something that I haven't done for a very long time. But I thought it would be nice. I remember some people asking me to do a haul video again, and I decided that recently I've picked up enough stuff that I think I can make a pretty substantial haul video. So just to tell you how I'm going to organize this, so I'm going to start off with the live action Japanese media that I've picked up, followed by the manga, followed by the anime TV series, and then by the anime films. Just to let you guys know, straight up front, this is mostly anime films. That makes up this haul. So don't be surprised to see the first few sections kind of go by pretty quickly, but I still thought I'd include them just because they'd be quite interesting to take a look at. And certainly, the first thing that I want to show you guys is something that I've been quite interested in a very long time since I heard that it was produced, and that is a live-action adaptation of Osamu Tezuka's Barabara. Now, this movie, unsurprisingly, is an adaptation of Osamu Tezuka's Barabara, which is a manga that I possess and that I remember having very good memories of. I remember quite liking the book. And so when I heard that there was a live-action film being produced of this, I was quite excited. To be fair, I do believe that there have been a couple of live-action adaptations of Osamu Tezuka manga. I remember hearing that they did a live-action adaptation of Mu, for instance. And I know that they made a live-action adaptation of Dororo. But as far as I'm aware, this is the very first live-action adaptation of an Osamu Tezuka manga that I own. So I'm very excited to be able to check this movie out and see what it's like, particularly compared to the manga. Following that, you guys might remember that I picked up the Criterion release of Godzilla. And I've been having a great time watching those movies. And I was trying to look to see what other movies I could pick up, and it's been surprisingly difficult to find any of the Heisei or Millennium movies. But what I have been able to pick up is Shin Godzilla. Now, this movie was released by Manga Entertainment, who are now Funimation UK and Ireland. And it may also interest you to know that this is actually co-directed by Hideaki Anno, as in the guy who created the Evangelion franchise, along with a wide variety of other series such as Gunbuster, such as Navi the Secret of Blue Water, etc, etc. And I've actually watched this movie, and I had a really good time with it. I know a lot of people criticize it for being very dialogue heavy, but I thought as a return to the threatening Godzilla of the original movie, I thought it did a really good job. And the special effects, for the most part, are really good. There are kind of one or two moments where I'm watching the movie and I go, ooh, that special effect looked a little dodgy there. But in general, the special effects are fantastic. And when you think that this movie only had a budget of about $15 million, that's insane how good a job they did with the special effects. So I believe that even though I haven't quite ranked them all, as far as I'm concerned, of all the Godzilla movies that I've seen, which is about 16, I would put this in my top 5. I don't know where in my top 5, but I would put it in my top 5. Following that, I've been looking for other kaiju movies as well. And of course I heard that Arrow Films has been releasing some kaiju films. And while I wasn't able to get my hands on the Daimajin limited edition box set, I hope that they'll do a re-release of those Daimajin movies at some point. I was able to get my hands on the Gamera movies. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Gamera, Gamera was basically created by a company called Daiei to compete with Godzilla. Basically, they saw that kaiju movies were becoming big, they wanted some of the money, so they made up this flying turtle kaiju in order to be able to bring in some money. And Gamera is a lot dodgier in quality compared to Godzilla. There's 12 movies across these two box sets, and I would say that 2 of them I definitively did not enjoy. Those being Gamera vs. Virus and Gamera Super Monster. Those movies I actually had a pretty bad time watching. And I enjoyed all the other movies to a certain extent, particularly the movies from the Heisei era, although I do have to confess quite liking Gamera vs. Barugon, which is part of the Showa era. But I've been watching these Gamera movies, and actually recently I just finished watching all of these Gamera films, and I'm very happy to have watched them now. And I'll be curious to see if they ever release another Gamera movie again. There's a lot of extras in these box sets which are fantastic. And also, one of the things that I think is really cool is if you combine the covers, they make up kind of one image showing kind of the monsters that Gamera fights in the Showa era and then the Heisei era, as well as the kind of design differences between the two eras. So I think that's a really cool idea from a box design perspective. And those are all the Japanese live action movies that I've picked up recently. Next, we're going to tackle the manga section, which is only one manga actually. I have quite a backlog of manga to catch up on, and so I haven't been doing much purchasing of manga recently. But I was sent something recently that I ordered many years ago, and I'll go into detail on that in a little bit. But first of all, the thing that I got was Wonder 3 by Osamu Tezuka. Now, Wonder 3 was part of a Kickstarter campaign that Digital Manga Publishing ran, and I've spoken before about my thoughts on those Kickstarter campaigns, in that I was very happy that Digital Manga Publishing were releasing these Osamu Tezuka titles, but they weren't communicative enough. They were very limited in how they distributed these manga. They didn't release them through typical vendors or retailers, pretty much through their own stores exclusively. And they ran into a lot of financial trouble, and a lot of their Kickstarters, which had been quite timely in the past, ended up getting delayed and delayed and delayed. And in fact, with this Kickstarter in particular, first off, I was very surprised to see how long it's been since I actually backed this. I took a look at the Kickstarter website for this and noticed that this was due to arrive in 2017. Can you imagine? This is 4 years late. And even though this did arrive, there was a wide variety of other Osamu Tezuka manga that I backed in that campaign that ultimately did not get released physically, which I think is very unfortunate. Now, kudos to Digital Manga Publishing. They did refund me the money that I spent on those other books, but at least now I have Wonder 3, which is a series that I've actually heard quite a bit about, a lot of very positive things about this. I know the anime was quite important, and as part of Osamu Tezuka's catalogue, this is one of his better known manga series, so I'll be curious to see if I enjoy it as much as many of Osamu Tezuka's other manga. As I said before, that is the only manga that I've picked up recently. And next we're going to move on to the anime TV series that I've picked up recently. And again, not too much there, but enough to include. So recently enough, Anime Limited was doing a sale, and they had some really good movies and TV series available to pick up in that sale. And so I decided to pick up 2 TV series from that sale. One was Eureka 7. Now, Eureka 7 is a series that I've heard a lot of positive things about. It's received the sequel series. There's some movies coming out now. I believe there's a 3rd movie that's meant to come out soon enough. It's got delayed by the pandemic, but what can you do? And this was very cheap. This is all 50 episodes in this very nice box set for, I believe it was only about £14.99, which I was quite surprised at. And I have actually watched the series, and I have been debating with myself whether to review this series for multiple reasons. For one, doing more kind of recent popular anime series hasn't exactly done well for me. For instance, I did a review recently of Yuri on Ice, and that didn't do very well at all in terms of viewership, in terms of watch time, etc, etc. If you're desperate enough to know my own thoughts on Eureka 7, then you could access my MAL and you can see what I rated it on MAL. But I would be curious to hear from you guys whether you guys would be interested in seeing me do a review of Eureka 7, or if you still want me to focus on other manga and anime series that maybe are a bit more obscure. Besides that, the other box set that I got, and this is quite a very nice one, and I'll go into a little bit detail on this one, but this is the Ultimate Edition of Wolf's Rain. Now, this was actually quite cheap on the website. It was about 40-ish pounds, I think, which for an Ultimate Edition, and for a series that I've heard almost nothing but good things about, that seems like a really good deal to me. Now, I haven't actually watched this yet, but notice that I said almost all good things. I have heard a kind of an interesting story about this series, in that back in the day when it was being released in America, they were releasing them like 4 episodes in a box set at a time. And there's 4 recap episodes in this series in a row. And it just so happened that the box sets were kind of arranged so that on one of the box sets was all 4 compilation episodes, and that was all you got. And as you might imagine, a lot of people were very unhappy about it, having to spend about something like $20 on 4 episodes just simply recapping what has happened in Wolf's Rain up to this point. But besides that, I've heard really, really strong things about Wolf's Rain, and this is a very, very lovely box set. This is a cardboard box to contain everything within. And if I open this up, you'll see that you get this very nice art book with it. It's absolutely huge compared to the art books that are normally included in Anime Limited releases. And there's a lot of very kind of lovely artwork in this art book. So that is very, very nice. And besides that, actually the only other thing you get within this giant collector's edition is, of course, the complete series itself. which is very well packaged. And you also get a wide variety of art cards, probably too many art cards, to be honest. I remember mentioning before the fact that I'm not exactly sure what to do with these art cards. I always kind of just end up putting them back within the box set. And of course, I wanted to ask people before, what do you do with your art cards? If you get art cards as part of like, you know, a box set, whether it be anime, whether it be some kind of live action media, etc., etc. What do you decide to do? Do you end up just kind of doing what I do, which is to put them back into the box set? Or do you find some kind of use for them? They seem a bit too small to actually put onto like a wall. So from that perspective, I don't know if that would be a good idea or not, but I'm not really sure what else you can do with those art cards. Anyway, so that's a very kind of nice edition of Wolf's Rain, and I got a fantastic deal on it, to be honest, so I was very happy to be able to pick this up. And of course, that's all of the anime TV series that I've picked up. I've watched this one, I haven't watched this one yet. Let me know your thoughts on both of these series. And now to move on to the movies, which make up the bulk of this haul. So first off, we have a Gundam movie. This is Mobile Suit Gundam F91, which was released in the 90s, I believe, which from what I've heard was Yoshiyuki Tomino's attempt to kind of reboot the Gundam franchise. It was set quite a bit in the future of Universal Century. It didn't really feature any of the other characters from Universal Century, and it was meant to be kind of a soft reboot. That ultimately didn't pay off. Eventually, they decided to actually go with the whole alternate universe kind of stuff in the Gundam timelines in order to be able to allow people to jump in to the Gundam franchise without having to, you know, watch all of the previous stuff. But even though this movie ultimately failed to do what it set out to do, I'm still quite excited to take a look at it. I've heard that the animation is absolutely lovely in this film. And I'm also curious because I heard that apparently there's a piece of music in this, which is apparently a bit of a rip-off of the Imperial March from Star Wars, and so I'm curious to be able to see how much of a rip-off it is. Besides that, something that I heard about recently, and this involves the next two films that I picked up, was I remember hearing that Mamaro Soda, who just released his new movie recently, Belle, got a 14-minute standing ovation at Cannes, which is insane. And that kind of reminded me, hang on, I haven't actually watched his movies in a while. All the movies that I've watched from him previously, The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, Summer Wars, Wolf Children. Wolf Children is one of my favorite anime movies of all time. I think it's just an absolute masterpiece. But oddly enough, since then I haven't actually watched any of his other movies. And so I decided to rectify that. And I picked up The Boy and the Beast, as well as Mirai. And of course, as you can imagine, I'm quite excited to check out these movies. I've heard from friends of mine that neither of them are as good as Wolf Children. But nonetheless, I'm excited to be able to check these movies out. I think that the animation in these Mamaro Soda movies are absolutely lovely. And the stories themselves are so emotional. So of course, as a fan of Mamaro Soda, who hasn't actually been watching any of his recent work, I definitely am excited to be able to check out these movies and see how they compare to the ones that I have seen before. Then another movie that I picked up is actually, this one I actually saw many years ago, and that is My Miracle. Now, My Miracle I actually saw in cinema. It was kind of an art house cinema. Oddly enough, it's built in what used to be a church, so it's got all these pews and everything, and up where the altar used to be is this kind of screen that shows all these kind of more artsy movies. And sometimes they show anime films there, and I remember they had a Japanese film festival, and My Miracle was one of the movies that they showed, and I remember enjoying it quite a bit. Now, keep in mind, this was the same Japanese film festival where I saw Wolf Children as well, and as you might imagine, Wolf Children being a masterpiece quite overshadowed this film. But from what I remember, I still really enjoyed watching this movie, and I wanted to rewatch it again, because I think it's been close to like, it's almost like 8 years or something since I've seen this film. So I'd love to be able to watch it again and to remind myself what it was that I liked about this movie, because to be honest, I actually can't really remember that much from this movie. It's been so long since I watched it. It's also interesting to note that this film was kickstarted. When I say this film, actually that's kind of incorrect. This release of it was kickstarted. Anime Limited, for whatever reason, decided to run a Kickstarter on this. So on the back of the box, it actually says, funded with Kickstarter. And I think I remember them doing something like that with Patema Inverted, was it? As well as maybe one other movie, I can't remember which one it was. But they haven't actually done that recently. It's been ages since they've done Kickstarter, and To be honest, I would actually like to see them maybe do a bit more kickstarting, particularly when it comes to kind of very obscure anime. I would love to see them, do a Kickstarter maybe to release Panda and the Magic Serpent. I think that would be a really cool idea to see if enough people are interested that would make releasing it worthwhile. I don't know. You can let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are on Anime Limited doing Kickstarters, but I think if they chose it for like really kind of obscure stuff, just to make sure that they get their investment back, I think it's a pretty good idea. So I would like to see them come back and kind of maybe do some of that someday. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below on that idea. Following that, we have another kind of very interesting anime film, and that is A Night is Short, Walk On Girl. And this is a movie that I've been quite interested to watch. But I've heard that this is a kind of a spiritual sequel to Tatami Galaxy, which I actually do own. So I've been waiting to watch this movie until I've actually watched Tatami Galaxy. But again, I've heard nothing but good things about this movie. In fact, a friend of mine actually told me that she watched it recently and she thinks it's a masterpiece. So as you might imagine, that's got me even more excited to check this movie out. And I love the look of the art style. I think it looks very distinct and interesting. So as you might imagine, I'm quite excited to check out this film once I have seen Tatami Galaxy. Following that, we have Mind Game. Now, Mind Game is a movie that I've heard mostly about its artwork. It's done by Studio 4 Degrees Celsius, and if you take a look at the actual trailer here, you can see that it's incredibly distinct looking. I haven't heard anyone talk about the actual story itself, but I've heard very positive things about this film overall. So I decided that once it was on offer from Anime Limited that I definitely had to pick up this movie. Following that, I actually have a movie here. I'm quite excited about all of these movies, but I really love the concept of this movie, and that is Genius Parody and Genius Parody Beyond. And the thing that I think really sets this movie apart from many other films, keep in mind I haven't actually watched these movies yet, but the thing that I'm quite excited about these is that these are anthology films. So these are basically a collection of short anime films that many anime directors did. And so it's just kind of a hodgepodge of various art styles, various storytelling designs, etc., etc. And I just love that idea of like an anthology collection of short films. That's something that we kind of saw with Memories, for instance. And it's something that I would like to see kind of more people do these days, because that's something that I always think about when it comes to these kind of animated short films, or even live action short films for that matter, in that they're very hard to distribute unless you just simply put them up online or on streaming services, etc., etc. But to ask someone to purchase a box set of just a single short film, usually for quite a bit of money, I think is always a hard sell. But if you have a lot of short films together, like this, the two films together are 170 minutes long, so that's nearly 3 hours, which I think is fantastic. So it's a great value for money. And I'm quite excited to just be able to see a collection of short anime films that are a bit more experimental, that are a bit more risk-taking, etc., etc., and that are from many, many talented people in the anime industry. After that, we have a movie called Miss Hokusai. And this film is about the daughter of Hokusai. Now, if you don't know who Hokusai is an extremely famous painter. Particularly, I believe he did what was called ukiyo-e in Japan, which is a specific kind of painting on, is it wood blocks or something like that? I know it's very distinct, and he's done an enormous amount of very famous pictures. In fact, if you look up Hokusai now, you'll probably recognize a bunch of pictures just from popular culture. But this movie is about his daughter, who quite often assisted him. And beyond just loving the concept, I've heard incredibly good things about this film. So as you might imagine, when I saw that it was on offer, I just had to pick it up. Now, I do know that Anime Limited recently has re-released this film with an English dub, which kind of is slightly annoying to me, but still, I got this for a good value. I was probably going to watch it in Japanese anyway because of the kind of setting. It would kind of feel a bit weird to me to have such an inherently Japanese setting and to have them speaking English, so I was probably going to watch this in Japanese anyway. So it doesn't bother me too much, but I'm quite looking forward to this movie. After that, we have a movie called In This Corner of the World. And In This Corner of the World, I was reminded of recently. I was writing for my blog, and I was talking about kind of crowd-funded anime. And this movie, interestingly, was crowd-funded in Japan. which I think is quite fascinating. And then it came out and it was getting incredible reviews from everywhere, so much so that I remember Manga Entertainment making a big deal. Was it Manga Entertainment or was it Animatsu? I always get them mixed up. But one of those companies bought the worldwide rights to it, so that they were able to be the licensor to pretty much everywhere outside of Japan. Jiro Mizunarani was so entranced by this movie and so sure that this movie would be a big hit that he got the worldwide rights to distribute it. And I don't know how successful that was for him, but nonetheless I've heard incredibly positive things about this movie. After that, we have what is kind of considered to be a bit of a classic of the anime genre. I'm not sure if it's been long enough since this movie has been released for it to be a definitive classic. But again, it's a very, very well-received movie, and that is Sword of the Stranger. Now, this movie, I've heard, is absolutely incredible. I've heard nothing but positive things about this movie. I hear it's absolutely brilliant, and it's animated by Bones. And if I'm correct, I believe it was an early enough release from Bones. It was pretty soon after they were established as a company. So I've heard that the animation is beautiful, I've heard the action sequences are fantastic, I heard the story is great, and as you might imagine, I'm excited to be able to get the opportunity to see this film at some point. Now, of course, if you know me, you'll know that I'm a big fan of the Lupin franchise, Lupin III to be specific. And of course, when I saw they were releasing Lupin III the First over here, I was like, I have to pick this movie up. Now, admittedly, this movie is animated in CGI, 3D CGI to be specific. So it does have a very different look compared to many other Lupin series, which are all animated in 2D. But from what I've heard that people really like the animation of this movie. It's very fluid, it's very cartoony, it's very stylish. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to get into it too. Admittedly, from the trailer that I saw, I'm not the biggest fan of the look of Jigen in this movie. But besides that, I do actually quite like the look of everyone else, and it does seem that they're animated quite fluidly. And as a Lupin fan, I'm very excited to check this out. But this also kind of brings up another kind of question for me, and this is a question that I'd like to ask you guys, is that Anime Limited have kind of dipped their toes in the Lupin franchise. They released Lupin III Part 4, they've got the rights to Lupin III Part 5, they've done a re-release of The Woman Called Fujiko Mine, and now they're releasing this movie, Lupin III the First. I'm kind of wondering to myself, how far is this going to go with Anime Limited? Are they going to kind of start doing a kind of a Gundam thing, where they begin releasing all of the Lupin franchise? Will they release Lupin III Part 1, Part 2, Part 3, etc, etc? Because even though I already own Part 1 and Part 2, I imported them from America. Unfortunately, Lupin III Part 3 has been released only on Blu-ray in America, which means that I can't really import it. So I do think that's quite a shame. And so I'd be super excited to see Anime Limited pick up the rights to releasing Lupin III Part 3. And of course, there's so many other movies and TV specials that the Lupin franchise has seen over the years. I'd absolutely love to see Anime Limited get the rights to those as well. I do know that a lot of them were released on DVD and I could import them from America, but a lot of them are quite expensive for a piece of media that is probably 40 to 60 minutes long. So I just kind of never really thought that the value was quite there, and I can imagine that if Anime Limited began releasing them, that they'd be a lot more affordable to me and I'd be more willing to pick them up. I'd love to be able to see Anime Limited do that someday, and I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on whether you think Anime Limited are going to go down that route. Are they going to focus more on kind of the recent Lupin series, such as Part 4, Part 5, Woman Called Fujiko Mine, Lupin III the First, etc, etc, or if they're eventually going to go into the Lupin III catalogue, which I'd be super excited about. I'd be picking up all of them except for obviously the stuff I already have. Maybe I'd even like pick them up again if it was like a Blu-ray release of like Lupin III Part 1, etc, etc. And then finally, this movie has been out for quite a while. It's actually been on my wish list for ages, but I haven't actually picked it up for a very specific reason, and I'll go into that reason in a moment. But that, of course, is Evangelion 3.33. Now, there's a very simple reason why I didn't pick this up, and that was that the franchise hadn't been completed yet. The rebuild series have been going on for absolutely ages. I think this movie was released over here around 2013, and I kind of had it in my head that, you know, having picked up Part 1 and Part 2, that I'd wait to pick up Part 3 and Part 4 together. But it turned out that getting Part 4 out took ages, and in fact it only came out this year. But now that part 4 is out, I was deciding to myself, well, it's important now that I pick up part 3 because it's at a very affordable price. I don't know what kind of cost it would be if this got re-released again. And then once part 4 comes out, I'll have all of the Rebuild series, which I think is fantastic. I'm not the biggest fan of the original Neon Genesis Evangelion series, which is why I haven't decided to pre-order the new release of the Neon Genesis TV series yet. Maybe someday when the price goes down a bit, I'll pick it up purely for like a historical perspective. But I have to admit that I've been really liking the Rebuild series that I've watched. In fact, of all the Hideaki Anno stuff that I've seen, which admittedly isn't that much, for instance, I haven't seen his Gunbuster, but I've seen Nadia, The Secret of Blue Water. I've seen, the original Neon Genesis Evangelion, as well as the 2 movies associated with it. I've seen Shin Godzilla, etc., etc. I think that Evangelion 2.22 is the best thing that he's ever produced. Now, of course, that can change in the future. Maybe these Evangelion movies will change it. Maybe his upcoming releases of Shin Ultraman and Shin Kamen Rider will change that. Or maybe I'll be able to see Gunbuster someday, and maybe Gunbuster will suddenly become my new favorite. I don't know. But of everything I've watched so far, I think 2.22 is brilliant. And I'm very excited to be able to go back someday and to be able to watch these Rebuild of Evangelion movies from beginning to end. So that was my haul, mostly of anime films, but also, a couple of other things, some TV series, a manga, and some Japanese live action films. And it's been quite nice to be able to do this haul. I don't think I'm going to be doing it quite as regularly as I used to, but I still enjoyed being able to kind of share what I picked up with you guys. And so, of course, the question now is I want to hear your thoughts on all of these releases. Have you seen any of these? If you have, did you like them? Did you dislike them? What are your thoughts on the various ways that these were released? Such as, for instance, the Ultimate Edition of Wolf's Rain. Did you like that? Did you like the fact that I included some Japanese live-action movies? Or do you think that this should be very specific to anime and manga? Personally, I think anything of Japanese popular culture is still fine to include in these videos, but you can let me know in the comments below. And of course, if you want to support the channel, I would encourage you to use both my Amazon affiliate links as well as my brand new Right Stuff affiliate link in the description below. When you purchase anime and manga through those affiliate links, not only are you supporting me, not only are you supporting the channel, but you're also supporting the anime and manga industries. So I would highly encourage you to go and use those affiliate links when you purchase your anime and manga. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and bye-bye.